Well, that might have been the best mess up yet. Yay!
Yeah,
That
people,
might
we're already laughing without even introducing ourselves yet.
not even because that was the best technical mess up we've had all season. All season. Hello, Daisy. How are you?
Good, Shira. How are you?
I am well. I am well now that we're live. I want to thank everyone who stuck around for a few minutes to see us because we had a little technical issue with everything. I don't know why. I'm not going to take ownership of it. So it's good. It's all good. I am really excited to be here today. Welcome, everyone, to the Glass House, where we look at business from the inside and the outside to expose the gap between what's embedded and what is actually embodied. I am Shara Halixer. I am the founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3P.
And I am Daisy Watkins, founder of DW Concepts and LumaPath.ai. I always have to say in business today, if AI doesn't see it today, you don't exist.
So is AI going to see that? The big 6-minute delay and the mess up? Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
awesome. We're good.
Awesome. If you are here today, I say this week after week, and I know we really mean it from our hearts. We thank you. You have loads and loads of options out there, tons of things to do. You've chosen to be here, whether you're live with us or you're watching us in a recording, whether it's here on LinkedIn, on our YouTube channels, on our website, engage3p.com, or now, I can't say it enough, Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review 5 stars. Everyone says that when they have an Apple podcast, so I'm just saying it, but I really, I rated myself. Is that terrible? And I've been so excited. I don't know why I'm so excited to be on Apple Podcast. But we really do appreciate the fact that you're here, and we don't take it lightly. We want to make this as much of a conversation as possible. So please give us your comments. We are reading them on air. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts. So drop them in the comments and we will get them into our dialogue. You can share reactions as well. We want to try to make this a conversation, not just a broadcast, as best we can with the tools that we have. So.
And we actually do mean that. We took a week off in the conversation, but the conversation didn't stop. People kept actually tagging us and also arguing in the threads. That kept asking us, when are you going to be back? I think we didn't announce that we were not going to be back last week, so it was a surprise for some people. But that is the whole point of this show, though. It was never a broadcast. It is a room. And the room stayed full while we were gone, so everyone was kept going. And thank you so much for all the feedback and all the responses on the threads. So we are bringing all of that energy to you today. So I'm excited today, actually.
I am too. Did you have a good week off?
I did have a good week off and a lot of work. So great successes last week. Big deals that came in last week. So thank you.
I love that. That's fantastic. I love that. Well, here's a question. We're going to get right into it, right? So here's a question almost nobody asks out loud. When was the last leadership training that actually changed how someone leads? Not the program, not their certificate, the actual behavior that was on hand on Tuesday, on a hard Tuesday when the pressure was real and the old patterns feel safe, right? It's so easy to revert back to what we know, even when we're told something new.
Oh, absolutely. Here's that same question from the outside, from my view, right? So when AI gets asked who the real leaders in the field are, it does not read the values on the wall. It reads the footprint. And most of the time, the people truly leading inside a company are invisible to the machine because leadership and title were never the same thing.
It's interesting, right? So most companies have a leadership program, right? We've all heard about leadership training, and that's embedded. Most companies cannot name 3 things that their leaders are doing differently because of it. And that means it's not embodied.
And that's exactly why this matters. A leader can look at the part everywhere. It is easy to look, you know what I mean? And then the polished post, the keynote, the title in the signature line, none of that proves the leadership is real. I've seen that so many times. But
Right.
proofs it is whether it holds when no one is performing and whether the people around that leader actually grows. Very big impact. And I shared with you a story of one leader that I really like. So that read happens in the inside, and that is where Shira lives. Shira, tell me, who is it with us today?
I am so excited about our guest today. Our guest brought the line that crystallized this whole episode for us. Leadership is not something you have or gain overnight. It is an evolution. He spent 30 years on the front lines of HR, 24 of them leading, right? So he is a leader. He ran HR at 2 health centers, serving people who had nowhere else to turn. And they won Best Place to Work 3 times doing the work. He wrote 2 books, Applied Leadership and On the Edge of Effectiveness, both arguing the same thing, that leadership is built, but not granted. He has built leaders who lasted and watched organizations install training that never took, often in the same building. Sam Altawheel, welcome to the Glass House.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate the intro, very nice intro. And if you're having technical problems, it's probably because my fault as the guest.
Are we
Have to be me.
gonna blame it on you? Okay.
Blame it on me. That's all right. It's the one time you have problems is it's because I'm a guest. So
Well, that's
well,
well. I want to.
well,
Our
thank you
first
so
shout.
much. For,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I said thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's entirely my pleasure. I want to say hi to Philip from Jacksonville, Florida. We were talking earlier, Philip, about humidity, and I know Jacksonville well, and there's lots of humidity in Jacksonville. So I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're enjoying that. We were having a conversation before this about do we like it with or without humidity, and that came up. So I have to say hi to Philip. So I didn't do this before, Sam, but I have to now. I just arrived. Yay! This is your book.
It is my book.
This is your
That is
book.
my book.
Applied Leadership. So mine just arrived. I, in fairness, have not read it yet. I just got it, but I will. It's sitting right here, and we're going to definitely get at it. And I would love to kind of just kick this off, right, and take us back to a real moment when we talked about, right, you ran that same leadership training for doctors and for line workers. I think there's a story that you've told about this experience, and I'd love to understand the difference in the 2 rooms because it was really interesting.
Yeah, wonderful. So this started back in 2005, and I was in manufacturing, and basically the plant manager asked me to provide leadership training, and we went outside and provided leadership training. And a lot of their manufacturing folks are just like welders and production workers and so on. And it was the group that was leading the leadership training was very smart, very great. They had great concepts, but my people weren't connecting the dots after the leadership ended. They didn't know how to apply it. Same leadership training later in time, I applied the same leadership training to physicians and nurses and so on. And they had the exact same problem, is the fact that how do we take this leadership and actually use it? So while the concept sounds great, they just didn't know how to connect the dots and how to use it every day in a practical sense. Going back to manufacturing, the plant manager asked me to put something together just for our troops, so to speak. So I had to think about it. I had to really think about it. That's when this whole thing started beginning for me as to what to write. And I started focusing on just fundamentals, real fundamentals. I started seeing I asked myself a question: what does a leader really need to have today?
Right.
What if you're going to write a job description for a leader? What are the elements that leader needs? And I started focusing on those fundamentals. So I started working with them a little bit on that, and I started seeing a little bit more kind of like, okay, I can see where I can use this. I can see what he's saying about this, and so I started moving forward, and that's how this whole thing began.
So what is one of those fundamentals, right? What distinguishes leadership from anybody else?
Well, the fundamentals is like looking at this. When you look at, for example, like I said, a job description would have it. You do need some of the things that are necessary. You need those technical skills to be able to lead and teach others as well as that. If you're going to be leading others, you want to make sure you make good decisions. So to do that, you have to have those technical skills. Okay. you have to understand the business you're in, whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, government, understand how it works. So understand how your team and leadership impacts that business. Of course, the human side of things, the basic human side of things, good communication, motivation, things of that nature, building a influence, how to basically influence others. These are some of the foundational things. But not last but not least, I always focus on approaching things in an ethical manner. Many times it's never been discussed in leadership training, okay, because it's presumed. It is presumed things like that. But when you make decisions, what is the ethical decision when you're making that decision, whether you're terminating somebody, promoting somebody, or even disciplining somebody? There is some ethical lines that go into it. So you have to have those in there, embedded in there, so that way when you're leading, you're making proper decisions as well.
Very
So
good. Sorry, go ahead, Sheila.
no, you may be going to ask the same thing I'm thinking, which is who decides what's ethical in an organization, right? I mean, that we could talk about that for 6 hours, right?
Yes, we can.
I have tons of stories for that.
I think we all do, right? Like I've never heard anyone say that out loud. And who makes that decision? Who tells that, people have different feelings about what's ethical, what isn't. We're not talking about unlawful. We're not talking about something that's wrong, right? Necessarily, right?
Right.
How do you decide that?
Well, there is a basic right and wrong. There is obviously there's a little gray areas in there, obviously, but that comes down to basically thinking about and analyzing it. It's not a black and white thing, but the fact that you're conscious of it, that you're walking around conscious of it, you have to ask yourself a question: am I doing the ethical thing? Am I doing the right thing? That is the question you ask yourself. That is an ethical question. Are you doing the right thing? And so it's never going to be black and white. There's always going to be that gray areas. And having worked in all these years, I unfortunately have terminated lots of people. And I had to ask myself a question. Are we doing the right thing here? Is this the right thing to do something like that? And so those come in quite, often. But the fact that you're conscious of it is important rather than, well, it's business, nothing personal. That's how I used to hear all the time. Well, you know what? Sometimes it becomes personal. When you take somebody's livelihood, wrongfully, it is personal. And so that cliche kind of, should, in my opinion, should die out. But it's important that you really think about your actions before you do anything. And that's where the ethical, consciousness come in.
Now, I'm probably taking this a step further than it should, but when you talk about ethics, right, it also stands for your own internal moral or your own compass, right? And so a leader then would have to decide, is this business ethical or personal ethics, right? Or morals. It kind of, for me, it falls in the middle to make that left or right decision. So are you seeing leaders actually even give it a thought, or they just instantly decide on what you see has been an ethical decision versus a non-ethical decision? Where do you see those behaviors in a pattern? And I'm very curious about what you see.
Yes, it is. I do see both. I do see both on that. I've seen people approach things in a very, very methodical manner. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this? This is a business thing. This is not a personal thing, trying to really justify this, but also taking the proper steps into doing something to doing. There are proper steps to doing things. And I've seen other ways where basically somebody is, well, that person's not liked by it, and all of a sudden their history. And there's no consideration of like, do we go through a process? Do we do anything else? We do have a process. So when we're talking about obviously termination here. So I have seen both. And unfortunately, I've seen quite a bit more of the negative than I've seen the positive. And again, because it's one of those things like, well, whoever discusses this, because again, in every leadership training I've ever implemented or have and everything else, and even discussions among, executive team or the leadership team, it seemed like that never comes up.
It's so interesting, right? And there's a difference between what is moral and what is ethical and what is right for the company. And I'm not saying those don't have to be mutually exclusive. Hard decisions sometimes have to be made in organizations. We get that, right?
That's a true 100%.
I think if we take it away from termination for a second and talk about other things that leaders are doing, like you mentioned promotions, sometimes
Correct.
promotions aren't ethical, right? Sometimes
A
people
lot.
are given roles
A
that
lot.
they're not suited for, that they didn't really achieve because there's a friendship or there's a relationship there, right? And that dynamic impacts lots of others because people know, right? And there's challenges there. One of the things you said, though, that I'm going to challenge just for a moment is this notion that a leader has to know the skill. I think, for me, I think there can be really great leaders. They have to know what the business does, right, and the purpose of the
Hmm.
business. But I don't know
Hmm.
that a great leader, especially a leader of people, necessarily has to do the thing that those people do, right? And
That
have you?
depends.
Okay.
Right. So I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'd love to know what you've seen.
I see two different things. I see there's a level of, for example, yes, if you're leading certain type of people, because you need to understand what they're doing to make the right decisions when they come to you. That's the most important thing. Then there are first line leaders. Anyone who leads a person, one person to me is a leader. So it's their supervisor or leader. And your job is to teach that person how to do the job. And so there you need those technical skills to help that person that coming into the team understand it and set expectation. So it's important to understand that what your team does,
Mhm.
and how they impact the team. I mean, you may not understand all the basically is, for example, how sausage you make, but you do
Right.
understand what it is. And so that
Right.
we're able to make proper decisions, especially when they come to you and ask you for a decision making process. So you get to hear all the sides of it as well. And I've had IT report to me before, and believe me, I'm not an IT person, but I trusted the person to tell me, give me the pros and cons before we make any decisions going forward. And so in some cases, yes. In some other cases where you are first line supervisor leader, you need those skills to teach others as well. So
Do you ever find that you're brought in to to develop leaders who don't manage other people? Because I love the idea of a leader. A leader doesn't have to manage people,
I
right?
agree.
And so have you found organizations see the value in that they want to create
Oh yeah.
individual contributors? Yeah. And how do
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
they come to you around that? What's that
Well, it's
conversation?
it's we call them project leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they call them project leaders. And in terms that they're leading a project, they're not necessarily leading a group of people, but they're leading that project itself. That's one of them. The other one is somebody in charge of teaching and teaching only, because they're so
Oh,
good at their job, they're really teaching. So they're in the leadership of teaching others to do a certain job. And so there's another factor as well that is the best thing about that is if you can create those things and you're allowed to create those things are wonderful. I love those types because then it gives people like, look, not everybody wants to lead others. Let's be
right.
real. Okay. Some people are like, look, I'll take the title, the money, but I don't want the headache. And
Right.
so you can hear that, but they have other things that can bring value. And so whether it's project leadership or is it teaching or something else you may be able to create, but absolutely. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Daisy? I thought I.
No. You asked the same question I was about to ask in just a different way. You asked the same question somehow. So, so tell me, you spoke about. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself. You spoke
That's
about
okay.
being in a healthcare space. That you've taught some nurses and leaders in the healthcare space.
Yes.
Only because it was the last gig that I did. So very curious, and hopefully we have some healthcare people in here too. So
Yeah.
walk me through what a hospital needs you for, Sam. I've been in that space, and there's a lot they need you for. So, what were the challenges that what were they reaching out for you for to get their leaders in the
Well,
right?
believe it or not, the challenges were a lot of it is communicating within each other. I mean,
Hmm.
I used to ask my colleague who was a chief medical officer, I said, clinicians are great with patients, but with each other, he says, well, welcome to healthcare. You know,
So,
they could be on each other. So there was that communication because there were certain expectations. For example, so a physician would expect his MAs, nurses to do certain things when he sees a patient, and if it's something a little bit off, that physician may get upset, may get a little bit this. these are the things that we kind of worked on. Like, look, you kind of have to be patient with people as they're learning, and vice versa. The one case I had was there was a nurse practitioner and MAs. They're both union representative, and they're both complaining. The MA is complaining about the nurse practitioner, and I was in the middle of it between two union reps. And it was very interesting, but it came down to really basic, really communication in terms of how to communicate every day, you know, work related matters, what the expectations are. And especially when you have physicians who are very, very intelligent, very smart, they haven't learned how to set that expectation with their staff. Okay. And they can get very frustrated. And so, and again, it goes both ways as well. But that's some of the things I've seen. That's some of the toughest part that I've seen. Yeah.
It's very true though, in that space, especially when there's a union involved. So
Right.
I found from my observation being in that space and walking around, hospital hallways and sitting in HR for days on end. When the union comes in, everybody panics, or somebody's trying to get in the back. The union's trying to put some propaganda out there, and so the morale is affected by that, right? And so
Sure.
you have obviously the union members versus management that try to communicate. There's always the resistance from union members, just based on what the union's telling them. So I think there's some decisions made by employees there that are more peer pressure, I would imagine, versus what they really want to do, because now they're paying their dues, so they have to go with the flow, otherwise they'll be outcasted by their peers. So are you seeing that as part of a problem of communication, because they're defending themselves versus
Oh,
accepting?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody, as the old saying, somebody has to stir the pot. Okay.
Mhm.
And there's always going to be that case. And I think so. And how you approach those situations are different. When you have, as you said, sometimes union employees, you have shop stewards kind of making things a little bit this way. And then you have management who want to react very, very defensive. This is where you have to kind of say, okay, let's sit down, relax here. Let's have a conversation. When I worked in the healthcare organizations, I basically developed a relationship with the unions that we try to solve things before it goes to the grievance process. So try to resolve everything prior to that. So that way you can sit down and have a conversation with it. If we did wrong, then we'll own up to it.
Mhm.
Okay. But I hold you the same thing. If your person did wrong, we're going to hold that person to it as well. But having that build relationships, that allows us to basically kind of avoid go through the grievance process, go the whole thing, and becomes, a nightmare, so to speak, and takes up a lot of time. But in many things too, is what I see also in like medical leadership, in terms of like physicians, was that they understand their skill so much, but they don't understand how to influence people. And then kind of, because also, if you notice a lot of, and this is being general here, doctors go from school to school to school, right to work. And they don't have a lot of that in between, where they learn how to build relations with others. I remember meeting this young, part of our residency, we had this one young doctor, and she had a great personality. And I asked her a question. I said, you have just a great, communication skills, everything else. I said, what did you do before medical school? I was a Starbucks barista. So she learned to work with people in many ways. And so the hard part is like, okay, let's see what the people that can't work with people, how do we do this? Second part of it is to get them to think organizationally, to think that, okay, how do we do things that best with the company? If you're in leadership, organization comes first. So how do you think organizationally? How do you focus on that? And so we really try to focus them onto thinking that way, not just, okay, it's your department only. It's not about your department. It's about the whole thing as a whole. So, yeah.
I think it's interesting, right? And I don't know, Sam, if you and I talked about this, or I said this to someone else recently,
Yeah.
but having been an HR leader myself, when people would come and see me, it was always with this kind of, well, I know you lead HR, so you're not going to help me because you work for the man, you
That's
work for the
right.
company.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
and I would say to them, we're all paid by the same company. Like, I'm not paid any differently than you are. You're paid by the same people. You work for them too. The
Right.
question is, what is my ability to do something? You know what the rules are. You know what the guidelines are. You have a policy handbook. You know what I can or can't do on paper.
Right.
But if there's a situation we need to talk about, let's have a conversation. If it's something that's reasonable, right? This is where we talk about something ethical and moral, right? If it's something that's reasonable, somebody came into me and they were making $100,000 a year and they said, I want $1 million a year. Clearly that's not happening, right? Like, let's be logical about what's going to happen. But there are certainly circumstances in life that there's a reason it's human resources and not, I don't know what else, right? What else would we call it?
Yeah.
So I would always say to them, look, we all work for the same company. We all get paid out of the same bank account. I have an obligation to both sides. I will always listen. I will always try to come up with a solution. I can't always give you what you want. Let's be clear. I may be able to get you something. I may be able to get you nothing today, but something tomorrow. But to your point, it's having that conversation that I think is 90%. To be fair, maybe a little bit less, but I think it's the biggest part of being a great leader is being able to listen and to empathize and to be able to have a conversation. And the other person walks away and goes, I was heard. I may not get what I need or what I want, but I was heard and I was valued. And then we move on from there, right? And that's critical.
It is critical. In fact, executive leadership have to understand that they cannot do the job without the people.
Right.
And the people have to understand that the employees have to understand that they don't have a paycheck if the company's not succeeding.
Right.
So it's a marriage. And
Right.
so sooner or later that you both accept that, sooner or later you can actually think about working together and doing what's best for the company. I mean, I will say this, I will do what's best for the company because the company is not just paying me, but it's paying all the rest of the employees as well. We want to see this company succeed because so they can pay everybody. So everybody goes home, pay their bills and take care of their families. It's not about me. And so they have to understand that too as well. Now, granted, I understand people say, you know what, I'm underpaid, I'm so on and so on. Well, we can only do so much. We have a process too, and we have process for promotions and things like that. But if you're going to come and ask for $1 million, I mean, well, I asked for $1 million, but I never got it. But I don't think I'll ever will. Yeah.
I bank with a bank that I don't know if all of them do it, but my bank in particular does it. When I would go inside and I'd do whatever with the teller, and they say, "Is there
Right.
anything else I can do for you?" And I would say, "I'd like $1 million." And most of the time they would laugh. Sometimes I thought they
Right.
thought I was going to rob the place, but they would go, "Huh?" And I go, "You said, is there anything else I can do for you?" I said, "This is very bad customer service. Anything?" And usually they would laugh a little bit and it would be like a little bit of a funny, but it's an interesting thing because again, if we're putting ourselves out there, if we're saying, what can I do for you? And there's no understanding of parameters, then the disappointment is going to be, you didn't do it for me. Right. And
Right.
that's when I think the morale and the understanding of what is good leadership also fails. So setting that stage of what's realistic, what's possible, I think is critical for a great
It
leader.
is critical. It's very critical. And if I said that to the bank, they'll think I'm robbing, by the way. So I think so. It is. That communication is vital. And I've always believed, and I told my managers and employees, well, set the expectations. What is the
Exactly.
expectations? And from the top to the bottom, what is the expectation? Is that way you're on the same page and follow up with any sort of writings, whether it's an email, documentation, things like that. But it's important that you're on the same page. That's really the important thing.
It's the thing that, sorry, Daisy, I'm going to go crazy for a minute. It's the thing that makes me the most insane is not knowing, right?
Yes.
And I think it's the thing in any relationship, right? Not knowing where somebody stands is the thing that is the most impactful and destructive, because we assume the absolute worst. We put our own kind of fears and everything into the thought of, why am I not doing anything? So for a leader, again, we can't always say everything that's going on, right? If there's something going on in an executive level, if the company's in trouble, if something's happening, if it's a public company and they can't, okay, not everything can be told. But for the most part, I think great leaders also can, like you said, can manage expectations and have ways of being able to kind of let people know what is or isn't happening without maybe necessarily disclosing something that is a big secret that they're obligated not to disclose. in my experience, people run when they're feeling uneasy and they don't know what's going on. And that's a kiss of death when it comes to productivity and everything.
And you know where that happens a lot? Reviews,
Oh,
performance
good.
reviews.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not a fan of them. And
No.
one of the biggest mistakes that even an amateur leader does is that the entire year, they don't communicate anything with the person. When the time the person comes in the review that year, that person's surprised. That person should not be surprised. Okay. That's number one rule. And it should be, if anything that person was doing right or wrong during that year, that should have been communicated. So reviews have been some of the biggest problems in all the years I've been doing this HR. They come to my office, and what is the problem? Is reviews. I got a bad review. I got this. He never told me this. It is the worst. And what do? You give them training how to do reviews. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so we're adding more layers now to something that we really honestly, I don't even know why we have it. If you have your one-on-ones, if you're having a proper, communication with your staff regularly, I don't see why you would have it. And then they said, well, for disciplinary reasons, you have to set it right. I said, well, if the person's not doing well, then there are documentations that could take you there, whether it's a 90-day, whether it's this, and so on. But reviews have been, in many companies, have been thrown away. And I remember the first time I read an HR Executive Magazine article, and the first Fortune 500 company that threw it away was Oracle. I was like, wow, good for them. And I really thought that was great. So not sure if they still using it now or not, but that was way back then. So these are the kind of things where you're unknown. You don't know where do I stand? And that
Yep.
makes a lot of people nervous. So am I doing a good job? Am I doing a bad job? Do I need to put my resume on LinkedIn? Things like that. So yeah,
I
I
think
agree with you.
for a good performer, it can be as damaging to a good performer as it can for a poor performer, not to give them that surprise. If I've done really well all year and the first time I'm hearing about it is 12 months later,
Mhm.
I'm probably already out the door, and that hurts the company. I used to, and Daisy, I swear I'll give this to you afterwards. When I was selling HR technology, the question, they would say to me, does your, system do performance management? And my answer was, why are you doing it? And they would look at me like, huh? And I said, this is not a judgment call, right? Why are you doing performance management? What is the point? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, is it for compensation? Is it to tick a box so that you're compliant so you can say that you did it? Is it because you're going to do development planning? How often are you planning on doing performance check it? And it was clear nobody had ever asked that question. It was just kind of this, well, it's 12 o'clock, 12 months later, it's time to do a performance review. And it created wonderful conversation about why they're doing it and whether or not that's the right thing to do and how to go about doing it. So I love that. I love that conversation.
It's embedded in the system now with the HR. Now you think of, as soon as you think HR, you think performance reviews. Okay.
Right.
It's embedded in that, and nobody really, there's only a few that question that. And actually a lot of newer companies, whether they're startups or just in the beginning, if you're asked to help them out, they said, oh, we need a performance management system. And you're like, okay, can you tell me why? Well, we're supposed to have it.
Right.
There was actually no law that says you're supposed to have it. It's
No.
not an employment law area, everything else, but that's kind of the it's been embedded in the culture of HR. And fortunately, there's a lot of companies out there that they're questioning that, and other HR leaders are questioning that. I'm like, I salute you for doing it, because it's
Yeah.
really, I mean, unless you have a really valid reason to do it, and then you've got to do it right. You're going to do it. You're going to do it right, and
Well,
that's the hard part. Yeah, and the other part that I usually kind of always question is the fact that if you have a high performer person, you always have to show them that they're not doing good in one area. Well, why? It's because they give them something to work to. And this is something that my old boss used to say to me. I'm like, well, if the person's checking off every box, why need to add an additional box? By the way, you're not good at this, and when this is not part of their job, or something like that. So it's a lot of things that go into performance reviews have been, fortunately, been thrown away, and I hope they throw it all away. I do.
well,
Yeah.
from what I understood, performance reviews was it's an end conversation at the end of the year. How did we do for the year? So how I practice it, and maybe because of my situation and how I was going from one on site and an MSP or different employees, and in the space that
Right.
I was in was a regular check-in. I don't call it, hey, let's go a talk. Even say, how did the project go, or how did the task go? At the same time, hey, it's been a couple months we haven't talked. So how are you doing? Where can I, what are the challenges you're experiencing right now? Where can I help you?
Mhm.
Are you getting all the support that you need, right? And so that's a check-in. I call it a check, just a check-in, but it's really just something you can also document, right? When you go back to your desk and going, checked in with so and so, and I'll say, send me a follow-up email so I can give it back to you, whatever it is that you need. So when people say I have an open door policy, it doesn't mean you expect them to just walk in. You actually need to walk to them as well as a leader and kind of tap them in the shoulder. Hey, I see you. I know I get really busy, but do you have a couple minutes? Just tell me about what project are you working on? Where are you in the recruitment space? Or have you talked to this particular department or in the hospital where we had challenges, on how to, check in, even though
Right.
I had other leaders leading them, I go to the source because they're the ones walking the hallways. My supervisors or leads will tell me exactly what's going on. But if it's a situation that I feel like I just need to hear it directly from the person that's having the issue,
Right.
then I can just get a sense of where they're at, because and I also know my leaders, right, or my leads. And so I already know their personalities, that some may not share as much as others because of those. So you also have to know everybody in your organization on where you're going to get information and how that information is going to disseminate up or down. So there's that middle management that you also have to train on how to disseminate up, how to manage. When you're in that middle management, you have to manage up and down, is how I see it.
Yes. Yes, you do.
I think that that
And the
space
real
that's
right.
lacking in that world is like the having that ability to decide how to
Right.
manage.
Absolutely true. This is why I believe in one-on-ones.
Mhm.
It's really, regardless of how you set the time, once a week, once every 2 weeks, or once a month, those are meant for checking in on work, checking in on just how things are going, checking in on just like, how's your life going? How's things, whatever. Just basically having that one-on-one with your staff member, it also kind of gives you a much more a real conversation to happen, not a formal conversation. With the reviews are always so formal that it seems like you have to be a certain way. You have to do this. Well, having a one-on-ones is much more relaxing. You're having a conversation. At the end of it, it's like, well, how can I help you? If you're having challenges, how can I help you? You got this? All right. Is there anything you can do? Okay. You know how to find me? All right. You know what? We talk. And that's really what it is. And
It's building
it's
it's
yeah.
Yeah.
building relationship and building trust, which is,
Yeah.
listen, you built best place to work cultures in more
Yeah.
than once, right? What was
Yeah.
it that you embodied in those organizations with those people that was different than other organizations that couldn't do that? Is there anything that you can think of that was really a standout that made it different?
What I did is I started out with connecting with every leader when I first come on, do a one-on-one with them. And I want to understand what they're coming from. I want to understand their challenges. I want to understand everything else. I really want to know the organization through their eyes and their people
Mhm.
through their eyes and some of the challenges that they're having. That building that trust and building that relationship with them was vital to anything I could do, because anything that I come up with an idea, I have to basically sell it to them. And if I don't have a relationship with them, it's useless. The other thing is identifying what is working so far in the organization as a culture wise, what is working, and identifying those key elements and really, really just put those at the front and emphasize those to everything else. One of the organizations I was in, the two elements that were just fantastic, great, which is they were very collaborative,
Mhm.
and and there was a lot of trust among them. And so and they try to make the place fun. So those are kind of a culture that it was there already, but there really wasn't taken out. So my job is to make sure that they're all seeing that. looking at this. I mean, I'm not going to create something that's already there. If it's there, let's just use it. Absolutely. Right. You go into say, you would have to kind of look at the company from inside out. And so looking at that, then if everything goes the way it's that, then you work on the leaders again, emphasize those things and be part of it, included in every discussion, in everything that you do. That's not our culture. What is our culture? What is this? What is that? We use culture quite a bit. In fact, in the hiring process, what we did is that they start with the hiring manager to see what this person had the skill to do the job. Thereafter, maybe a staff member. Last person gets to interview them is me. I get to interview them to see how they fit in the culture. And so there are many times that they were like, "Oh, great, this person will fit in the culture." There's a few times like, "No way, that will never happen." So those are key factors to make sure when you're recruiting, also you're bringing the right people that fit that culture. But you have to identify those elements. You can't just go basically out whim and say, "Well, I don't feel this. I don't feel that." No. Tell me exactly why. And that's exactly what, because you have to have a logical reason to say why this person does not or fits the culture.
So here's a very provocative question that Shira and I always wonder.
Sure.
So we're in the age of AI, right? So when you're watching AI screen people out of high level roles right now, and we can have this topic all day long, actually. What is it failing that you see with this type of technology going on?
The human aspect. The human aspect involved, because when you're interviewing top level people, right? You're looking at the way they're communicating, you look at the way they're connecting with you, you're looking at everything else. Plus, there's a thing. There's things on their resume or things that they've done may not be on the resume, may not be part of the checklist. You go, wait a minute. This could add value to the company. And how is AI going to identify that? They're not. It's not unless you somehow programmed it to identify every possibilities, and it cannot. So when you talk to a recruiter, and that recruiter, and I've had recruiters work for me, and I trust their instincts and everything else. I go, how does this person communicate? How do they explain themselves? Okay, how everything else? How do they sound? Is there any other skills? All those things come into the discussion, especially at the higher level positions, especially. But when you're interviewing with a AI, it'll give you a question, you answer it, and then you move on. It's might as well just type in it and give it to you. It's absolutely. It's like you remember back then when they used to give you a line of questions and say, okay, part of your this is some of the screening questions we have, so you have to fill them out. So this is no different.
Yeah, and then you have those behavioral questions too that people get
Yes.
nervous about. Oh, what behavioral questions they're going to ask me today?
Yes.
It's all about a personality, to how you deal with things.
Yes.
People think there's a
Yes.
right or wrong answer.
There's no substitute for a live recruiter. There's just no substitute for it, because you want to talk to a human being. Plus, you have questions. I have questions about the organization. How am I going to ask the question from AI? I need to talk to somebody who understands the organization. Maybe I don't want to work there. After hearing.
It is a dating thing, but the employers forget that you also have to be questioned to be part of that
Right.
people, right? To be that
Right.
couple. And I think that's where a lot of organizations are.
I think the cons outweigh the pros. I understand the cost saving. I understand that, but to me, the human side of things make a difference. I mean, I don't know if you saw Chase Bank commercial. They say you're not. When you walk in the bank, you're going to be greeted by a human being, not by a robot. So
Is this
they've been
recent?
pushing. Yeah, there's been Chase. It's all over. I mean, Chase Bank commercials have that saying you're going to get greeted, and they do. You walk in, I bank with them. I walk in there, there's somebody greeting me there. Everything else has become to a point where even organization like Chase is recognizing the human aspect of it, and you're not being approached by robot, by AI, things like that. So that kind of tells you quite a bit.
I mean, we're kind of leaping to the interview
Sure.
process. We're not even going
Sure.
to spend like 90 hours that we can talk about the whole application process. I
Right.
just had a conversation a couple hours ago, again, with somebody whose husband's looking for work. He's been looking for a year. Every article we're seeing is talking about this phenomenon of, what's going on in the application process. But I think that again, the idea of, and I don't want to go into even the culture conversation, because to me, culture gets funny, right? I mean, every company will put mission, vision, values on their website. They'll talk about their
Mhm.
culture on their recruiting page. Is that really being lived? I mean, I spent some time at a very, very large organization, a couple of years at a very large organization that had rules about their culture. And, I don't remember what they called it. And you had to do this, and you had to do this, and you had to do this. And nothing could have been further from the truth in the way that they operated on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it was the worst. It was so awful. I will tell one funny anecdote. No offense, Sam, to you or to the other 50% of the population, but you know how somebody came up with the International Ice Cream Day, and International Take Your Dog to Work Day, and International Sit in the
Sure.
Green Chair Day, and somebody told me once where all that came about. So this huge, massive organization, 500,000 employees around the world, somebody somewhere in HR sent out an email one day and said, it's International Men's Day.
Okay. That's a new one.
And maybe somebody created it, maybe it was and I said to friends of mine in my team, which was interesting, my team reached out to me when they got it, and they started sending me messages on WhatsApp and Teams. And the consensus of the messages were, when is it not International Men's Day? Oh, the day that it's International Women's Day. The one day that's International Women's Day. Because culturally speaking, the world is a man's world. And what that did culturally in the organization was really bad. That one little email, that innocuous email that they sent out, sent a lot of people into a tailspin for a day. And I've told the story now a million times. And I think that people don't understand the impact of this kind of thing, right? The impact of how they communicate, what they're putting out there. The intent might have been really great,
Mhm.
but it was kind of
I think
stupid.
the intent, yeah, I can see where the intent, somebody says something to the HR, said, what about equality? And therefore we have a women's day, therefore we have a man's day. And that's kind of took whatever this, and I get it, but I just think they come up with all these days for this and days for that, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure. Um, yeah, it can get a little bit twisted.
It was kind of goofy. It was definitely kind of goofy. But yeah,
Yeah.
Daisy, I know that we've got a great outside story in today. Do you want to get to it? You want to talk about it?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shira.
I
So
love our
where
stories.
every week we actually bring in a story from outside the room. This week it's a story that went viral, and I want to be careful about how we hold this, because the way we hold it is the whole point.
Oh my gosh, I am excited about this. And here's what I have to say before I tell you a single word of it, okay? Because I cannot validate this. There's no company name, there's no verified person behind it. It spread because it confirms something a lot of us already feel, and
Yeah.
that is exactly the trap. This is the modern day as we know it. We do not always know what is true. What I can tell you is that something is really going on, and people are desperate to figure out what, because they want answers. So I will tell you what this post claims. So like, I've now run the caveat of, I don't know. And then I will tell you what can actually be proven. So let's watch the difference here.
Okay.
Daisy, you're going to actually say it, not me.
Yeah. So someone claimed to be a head of talent acquisition posted a confession. They said they posted 500 roles last year and hired only 34. The other 466 were never real. They said what they acquire is not talent, is data. 160,000 people handed over their salary history, their CV for free. And the company used it to confirm it was paying below market and getting away with it. A listing for a director of innovation had been for months for a department that did not exist or does not exist, because it made the company look like it was growing. I cannot tell you if any of you, this is true, I can tell you it made me sick to my stomach, and I can tell you why it landed. And I'm going to add to that. It does happen, guys, in the general staffing world. We do put out some stuff, but those are different types of positions. So I want to put a caveat to that one. So, but this one is sickening. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Share.
I mean, I sent you the video, Daisy, immediately. And I think what's really funny is I think you ended up sending it back to me without saying that I'd send it to you because it was so impactful, right? So you talk about from a leadership perspective, what is leadership doing around the recruiting space? We somehow ended up in this recruiting space. But the idea that a company posts a job, a senior job, for a department they don't even have, for a role that doesn't exist, right? And you said it, Daisy. You and I both have been in recruiting. We used to call it shaking the tree. That was the term that I used to use.
Mhm.
We're gonna, post a role. Now, again, this is in 1512 when you had to get a newspaper and people had to mail in, resumes and stuff. So again, different time of the way that we would get this information, but it wasn't. We would post the role, not because they're necessarily hiring, but we're thinking about hiring. We want to see the talent that's out there. So it was rare. It wasn't something we were doing on all the time. And now the ability to do this online has scaled this to an astronomical level, and nobody's planned for this. So we could quietly test the market. Now, hundreds of thousands of people for applying for jobs, and many of these people are desperate to find them, right? So the scale of this has amplified to a level that we've never seen and never expected, right? And listen, I've said this a million times. I lived this for a year. I applied for jobs, over 800 of them. I know this because I have the inbox of what I sent out, or the outbox of what I sent out. And some of those roles, I would look at the posting online and be like, how did they get my CV to create this job description? It was worth. And I thought, I'm gonna hear from this one. I'm definitely gonna get an interview for this, and then never heard from anybody. Never heard from them, or got rejected, which didn't happen much of the time anyway. So I'm really kind of amazed, and I look to leadership in this case with the ghosting and the rejecting, and what is that doing to organizations, both internally and externally, right? What's broken here? Why are we doing this? What are we going to do to fix it? Because it's really terrible.
Well, you have to think about it too. That in that submission process is the first impression that you give
Yes.
the applicant, right? And so not forget, because there's no human there. That's an experience of first impression. So sorry.
No, it's
go
true.
ahead.
It's absolutely true. Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of amazing, right? I mean, we are seeing this over and over and over again. This is not a new phenomenon. It's a conversation we're having all the time. I think that it's where that whole kind of what I talk about, embedded versus embodied way of being exists in kind of the worst possible way. You talk about morality and ethics. If tens of thousands of people are applying for jobs, they're looking for work, it's pretty awful to then not be doing something that is honest, and then people are expecting to find work. I mean, I just think that speaks volumes about that, right? I mean, that's my take on that.
What
A
have you
colleague of mine I have a colleague of mine who's looking for a C-suite position, and he applied to 171 jobs on LinkedIn, and he had 2 bites.
Right.
2 out of 171.
Right.
That, and with the level of experience that he has, that's impossible. I mean, some of it is just, well, this can't be right. But it's happening. It's happening on this. And
Yeah.
they're using LinkedIn, they're using Indeed. And so it's really hard to know. What he told me is that sometimes you get to see the same job reposted. And I was like, okay, so that's also, and I don't know if honestly, I think this is kind of hard for even LinkedIn to police. How would they do it? It's going to be very difficult to do so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, it's like, well, how much are you getting out of this and how much are you really going to utilize that information? So you got all these resumes, everything else and so on, but are you really going to turn this into some sort of profit anywhere? And it's just, to me, it's a mess. I don't
It
even
is.
think it's really well thought out, to be honest with you. Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree. I have to say hello to my old friend, not old, but for longtime friend, Mark Moriello. Hello, Mark, for joining. I'm so excited. Mark said it's the same as when companies have a now hiring sign outside the building and then they just leave it up, right? They just leave the sign there. It really is what
Absolutely
it
true.
is. The interesting thing, I think, in the story that Daisy and I talked about, the video that we saw with this guy in this thing, the thing that to me that was most interesting is this chief innovation officer role for a department that didn't exist, for a role that is not on the books. It was a publicly traded company, and according to this video, when that role was out there in public, their stock went up. So one of the things that this guy said in this video is that companies are doing this because publicly, from the outside, people are seeing hiring. People think if you're hiring, you're doing well, so stock goes up. If you're hiring for innovation roles, if you're hiring for C-suite roles, things are moving up. I don't know about you, Sam or Daisy. I don't know about you guys. I was in recruiting for 700 years. C-suite roles are not posted on LinkedIn.
No.
C-suite roles are behind the scenes, retained searches. And it's so frustrating, right? And I feel terrible, again, going back to the kind of ethical thing. I feel so terrible for people who are applying for these jobs, waiting and hoping and thinking, and there's no chance, right? I mean, it's a crazy situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's the lack of, again, everything stems from communication, whether you rely on technology or not. That technology still needs to be able to respond and go, we received your resume, we received your, whatever it is, we go through a whatever process. So, but thank you for it. If you don't hear from us, good luck, whatever that ending wants to be. But if it matches your skills, but there's nothing. It goes to this big black void hole that I was wondering, did somebody even see it? Did somebody even touch it? Did somebody even click on my name? How many resumes am I competing with? Those are, like you said, Shreya, it's the unknown, right? It's the unknown that's really makes us go spiral. And we got to remember, these are humans needing a job, needing a change. They lost their job. So I think that humanity, somebody said humanity is humanity. And I have my own story about bots that I just lived through this last month with technology. That I wanted a human review.
Yeah.
Get me going over there. So I really also, like you, Sam, I practice ethics and what I do, governance around the AI that I use, but most of all, the human part, the human in the loop. I use AI all day long, but I always touch, feel, and look at websites manually before I let AI. AI will run it for me, but I have to validate what AI sees because it always hallucinates.
It's a tool. As long as you know that it's a tool, that you use it for whatever you need to use. It's a tool. At the end of the day, it's not a fix all things. And there are cases now where it's going to be a legal case where, I don't know, somebody told me there was ChatGPT is facing a legal lawsuit because it gave medical advice to somebody that got injured. And I've heard that. I'm not sure how valid it is, but I'm sure it is. The person told me it is. And so there's a lot of dangerous things that are coming out of it, but it's a tool, how you use it. And it's not going to be a substitute for humans. It's not going to do the things that, if I'm going to have a question about medical, I'm going to contact my doctor. Okay. I mean, you could, some basic things you can search and you can find, you go, okay, what's this likely? But reality is, it's a lot easier just to email your doctor and say something. But it's, again, it's a tool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's crazy. I love the idea of leadership being the thing that we kind of check our morals and our ethics first, right? When we think about what it means to be a great leader and how we're going to approach it. And do I want somebody to do this to me, right? How do I want to be treated when we've all started somewhere. Very few people start at the top. Most of us start somewhere in really kind of crummy jobs or not great jobs and work our way up, hopefully, to whatever we want to do. doesn't, not every, it's funny. I will say this, having been an executive and also having owned my own business, the one thing that I say to people all the time is it's not glamorous, right? I think that people think that especially owning a business, my job when I owned my own staffing company was I had to make sure the toilets were clean and I had to make sure the snacks were in the office and I had to make, that was my job. And if the people didn't come to clean, I'm cleaning the toilets because it's mine, right? So I think that it's an interesting dynamic that we don't understand. But I do want to, before we go, one of the things that we like to do every week is kind of give action items of something tangible, right? What can someone take away this week and do? And so I'm going to give you mine because I think that leadership is so critical, right? It makes such an impact. We talk about it so I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Like we just kind of take it for granted, right? That leadership's going to be good and that we're going to do it well. So here's my thing and Sam, I welcome your thought on this, is take the last leadership training your organization ran and name the things, thank you for that, people do differently now because of it. If you cannot name 3 things, maybe that's too many, but if you can't name 3 things, it was embedded. It was never embodied, right? That's your starting point. It's very easy to tell people what to do, but are we actually making that part of the day-to-day? So I love it if you all would kind of post on this chat or message me or whatever on LinkedIn, let us know, because I would love to know the answers to our action items.
Excellent, Cher. That's really good. For me, are you asking me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so ask an AI assistant, an LLM, about who the leaders are in your field, right? As a leader, look at those names, come back. If the people actually leading or inside the organization are not the answer, or even as an employee, the market's not seeing them. And this is where digital footprint's really important right now. And neither can your next hire see that, or your next client. It's more than just internally. Start making them visible this week. And here's why. Before the human can even ask about you or something, AIs already have an opinion about you before you even type anything out. So make sure you check. So
you're
that's a good
saying for my own company. So if I worked at ABC company, I would go into ChatGPT and say, who are the leaders of ABC company?
Correct. Now, if it shows up, you read what you see. Is it telling the truth or not? Is my next question. So as a leader and as a person, as a brand, always check. What is AI saying about you when you're not in the room?
Love that. Sam, do you have one for it?
Yes. If I were to give advice to somebody where you should start, I said, first of all, don't look for companies to provide for your leadership training. I don't think it's it. I think it starts with you itself. Making yourself a better human being will make you be a leader. Take those initiatives of yourself and actually go out there and search how to be a better leader. There are many resources you can find, many things you can find, or just basically do your own, self-evaluation and do your own, searches. But it comes down to really being a better human being. And if you begin with that notion, I'm going to become a better human being, you will become a good leader. All the skills will come in place later.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I'm going to add this because I think that people leap to the idea that being a better human being in leadership means that you're a pushover, or
not at all.
It's not. Those are not synonymous at all, right?
No.
So
not at all.
Well,
not at all.
I love this, Sam. I cannot believe how fast, as always, this hour went. I want to make sure to give everyone an opportunity to reach out to you. If they want to find you, this is your LinkedIn connection. They can scan the QR code and reach out to you on LinkedIn. They can go and buy the book on Amazon. I have my copy. Again, it is Applied Leadership, Developing Stages for Creating Exceptional Leaders. I will read it this week. I will make notes. I will make my comments because I think it's terrific and I love what you've done. I also want to make sure that people know how to reach out to us as well, because we would love to hear from you, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on, how else do people reach us? We have Instagram, we have our websites, we have all the things. Daisy, am I missing something here on the word? us down?
Streams. And oh, let me remind the people, the Apple Podcast, Shira. We are now Apple Podcast.
You can now find us.
Whether
on
you
Apple.
listen or not, just follow us, please. That Shira is like exciting project. We're trying to get to a couple more platforms. So I just want to say thank you so much. So Shira, that's the inside, I do the outside. So together we see to the glass house. Really, is what's the theme of these? Is that what used to be able to block from the outside from more marketing, it is now very transparent. So make sure that you are looking inside and outside, whether personal or business wise. So all the time. So.
Sam, my friend, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Anytime, my friend. And if you want to be on our show, we would love to have you. So let us know if you have a topic you want to talk
I'm always
about.
open. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
We welcome everybody. Have a wonderful week, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday. I'll make sure that the time is right. God help me. And thank you again. Take care, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.